today we are learning about lesson 22, which talks about getting the job done, speed, work, measurements, and units. So in this lesson, you learn about distance, rate, and time. Okay? So anytime we talk about the word distance, we're mentioning things like units like yards, miles, feet, meters, or centimeters. When you hear us mentioning time, when you tell time, you know you do hours, minutes, seconds. You may be talking about days. You may be talking about weeks, years. Those are all time units, okay? When we're talking about rates, when you hear us mentioning rates, we're asking you to look for things like miles per hour. That would be a rate. Seconds per minute would be a rate. Or even feet per yards. Now, there are more examples than what we have listed, but we wanted to give you an idea of what distance is, what time is, and what rate is. Okay, so we're going to move into our looking at the formula to find distance, rate, or time. So the formula is going to be distance, which is represented by the variable d, equals rate, which is represented with the variable r. This dot is times or multiplication, and this t it stands for time, which is represented with the variable t. Alright, so here's our first example. I'm going to see if you can pull out what we have listed. If we have distance in our example, if we have time, or if we have the rate listed in example 1. So here it is. This is not on your packet, so just track the board. So Miss Chipman drove 20 miles to the store. It took her 5 hours to arrive at her destination. Raise your hand if you can tell me if I have the distance listed, if you see the time, or if you see a rate listed in our problem. All right, Caitlin?
The time is 5 hours and the distance is 20 miles.
Alright, so I'm going to circle this. She said 5 hours is our time, so I'm going to label it as time. Alright, what else did you see?
20 miles is the distance.
20 miles is the distance. What lets you know that this is the distance?
Miles.
Miles. And what lets you know that that was time?
Hours.
Hours. Perfect. Alright, so now that we have those things labeled in our example, now we're going to go to our questions. So question 1 here says, how many miles did Miss Chipman drive in one, keyword 1, hour? Does it tell me how many miles I went in 1 hour?
No.
It tells me how many miles I went in what?
5 hours.
5 hours. So, to find out how many miles I went in 1 hour, I have to find the what?
Rate.
What kind of rate?
The unit rate.
The unit rate. The unit rate tells me how fast I go in 1 hour. So how will that look? How will that problem look?
20 divided by 5.
20 miles divided by 5 what?
Hours.
5 hours. Okay? So all I'm going to do now is say 20 divided by 5, which is what?
4.
Which is 4. So this lets me know that I went 4 what?
Miles per hour.
Alright, this lets me know that I went 4 miles. And you can write MPH for miles per hour. Okay? And this is also called our unit rate. Alright, now, so look at question 2 on the board. It says, how many miles would she drive in 15 hours? Can I figure that out using the information from the board?
Yes.
Yes, because I already know that I go 4 miles in what?
1 hour.
In 1 hour. So if I want to see how far I go in 15 hours, what could I do?
Multiply 15 by 4.
Yep, I can simply say 15 times these 4 miles per hour that I go. 5 times 4 is 20. All right, my 0 carry my 2. 1 times 4 is
4
plus 2.
6.
6. So in 15 hours, I can go how far?
60 miles.
60 miles. And make sure that you put the units with that, 60 miles. So, what was the rate or speed that Miss Chipman drove?
4 miles per hour.
4 miles per hour. Which again is my what?
Unit rate.
Unit rate. So we are also going to learn how to do all of what we already previously learned, like when we found the unit rate. We're going to use this in this formula, distance equals rate times the time. So I'm going to erase this. I'm going to give you, if you will, track your paper on exercise 1. I'm going to write it on the board, and I'm going to go through using this formula on how we would solve this same problem by using these simple steps. So we're going to start by looking at exercise 1. Exercise 1, we are going to plug in the information that we're given using this formula that I have listed on the board. Alright, so here we go. It says, I drove my car. I'll write it on the board. I drove my car on cruise control. Let's see how long. On cruise control at 65 miles per hour. For 3 hours without stopping. That means I'm going to crash somewhere. All right, so here's what they want you to do. They want you to figure out, how far did I go? Right? Did I go? All right, so I'm driving my car down the expressway on cruise control. Cruise control means I'm not changing the speed. I'm going at a constant speed, meaning my speed is not going up, it's not going down. I'm going steady at 65 miles per hour. Okay, so can you tell me what parts of this formula I already have?
The distance and the time.
You said I already have the distance. Where do you see the distance?
65 miles.
What else does it have behind 65 miles?
Per
what?
hour.
So all of this goes together. So anytime you see the word per, it lets you know that you're dealing with a rate. So do I have the distance or do I have the rate?
The rate.
I have the rate. So we're going to label this part, 65 miles per hour, as the rate. And again, we're on exercise 1. Okay? What else did you see?
The time.
The time, okay? And our time is 3 what?
Hours.
3 hours. What lets us know that this is the time?
Hours.
The hours. So we're going to go ahead and set this up. So I have D equals R times T. And Caitlin, what does the D stand for again?
Distance.
The distance. The R stands for the
rate.
And the T is for the
time.
So if I were to take this information out of this problem, what variables am I going to replace?
The rate and the time.
The rate and the time. So what is my rate, the number that represents the rate in this scenario?
65 miles per hour.
65 miles per hour. So I'm not going to use the miles per hour. Well, I can. So the rate is going to be 65. And I know that stands for miles per hour. And I'm going to do what operation?
Multiply.
I'm going to multiply that by my what?
Time.
Time. And what was our time?
3 hours.
3 hours. Okay. So this should end up telling me how what?
Far did you go?
This should tell me how far we went. So here's what the other thing that you have to know. Anytime you have 2 of the same units, they will cancel each other out. So I have hours here and I also have hours up here. So these 2 units are going to simply cancel out. Just like this. So you draw a line through them if they're the same units. So now all I have to do is multiply 65 times 3. So let's do that. 65 times 3 5 times 3 is.
15.
So I'll write my 5, carry my
1.
1. 6 times 3 is.
18.
Plus 1.
19.
All right. So over here, what was the distance that I went?
195 miles per hour.
195. And you see how miles is left by itself? That's the unit that I'll bring over. So I know that I went 195 miles, and that's the answer. Okay.